Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NLC Division 2. I was going to say the day and the week. We're week 3, day 1. There was a super week involved. There's been a lot. There's a lot. It's day 2. It's a first. I don't know. It's hot. It's warm. This is
It's
the
not
7th day of
even
games.
hold on, it's not even that warm, it's barely
It's warm.
25 degrees in the south. So what is it, like
Right.
23,
Let
22 in
me,
the UK?
I'll get the weather. It's by Prince But if you haven't
Oh, yeah,
got it
hi,
by
yeah,
just
the
that
yeah.
introduction that we always give. Weather in Newcastle. All right, hold up. We're just
You
gonna.
gotta love Div 2 broadcasts, guys.
It's 23 degrees. It's warm. It's 30 degrees at our producer's house, and he's
He's
gonna
in
be.
Italy!
Yeah, he's gonna be sweating. It's gonna
Of
be
course it's warm,
bad.
it's summer in the Mediterranean, what do you think?
It's
League of Legends,
it's
guys.
It's
Forget him,
hot
League
out
of
here,
Legends.
guys, honestly. But we have got 5 extra hot League of Legends games for you today. And actually, if we bring up what we're going to be watching, Lucent Rate will be kicking us off today in a couple of minutes' time. London United up against Lightside Domino, Rising Dawn, Guap, Unique, and then rounding out the Irish Derby, Monster Rugby Gaming, the new look versus Natives.
Yeah, new look. It's going to be a very exciting game. I'm definitely, very excited for that final game. Naturally, right? It's the Spring Split Finals rematch. But not only that, both of these two teams have very different stories compared to their
Mm.
Spring setup. At this point in the Spring Split, Munster were effectively dominating, right? I think they'd only dropped one game, and that was two natives. Natives on the opposite hand, where I think maybe one game behind them still. Something along those lines by this point by week 3, 7-ish games in. So yeah, compare that to where we are now, where natives are, I believe, 4-2 in second place, and Munster 3-2. I think they have to replay their rate matched if I've got that correct. So yeah, they it's completely different stories, especially the roster for Munster. It's not as consistent per se as it was
Mm.
in spring, as it's had its changes, of course, due to outside forces. So I'm looking forward to that because I think no matter what, that should in theory be a banger. I'm also looking forward, realistically, to our opening game. I think Lucent Rate
Mm.
could potentially have something to offer us, despite Lucent being down, at the bottom of the table at 1-5. They are still one of the teams that gives us, a lot of excitement as far as the drafts are concerned. Sometimes, so hoping that we can at least open with a bang and end with one.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of really nice games in the middle there as well. I'm looking specifically at Guap Unique. Guap, when they show up in a big way, and Unique, this team that we praised so heavily going into the split and had such strong immediate performances, maybe fallen off a little bit in terms of how they've been looking. So excited to see that one as our second to last game as well. But there's going to be plenty of action across all of our matches. Pray for London United, I suppose, going into the second match of the day. Lightside, of course, sitting at the top of the table as things stand. But Division 2, it's been a very, as we kind of alluded to, interesting opening in the first 6 match days. We've got Lightside at the top, sitting at 5-1 solo at the moment. Have they looked good for that lead, do you think?
Light side, yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely been one of our surprising, I won't say overperformers just yet, because right now this just could be how good they are. Let's not take that away from them. But in terms of when we're comparing it to our pre-split expectations, absolutely. And I think they've not really looked incredibly tested in most of their games. I think the only game where they were really tested was against natives, who are sat in second
Mm.
place. And even then, it was definitely a well fought enough victory to come back to punish, bad macro play from natives in the opening game in the split to take that victory off them. So yeah, I think they do look the part to be 5-1 right now. Like you say, pray for London United when we do wrap around to that game because yeah, it's probably not going to be looking particularly the best.
Well, let's move our attention to our first match of the day. We've got Lucent up against Raid, and I'm getting word in that we're going to see a substitute. Sin is going to be playing in this game, so bench player,
Huh.
but start him because it's looking like one of my football manager saves, really. Just, interesting decisions all around. Mid-table performance right now, have to replay a match because of some nonsense elsewhere. It's all adding up, really. But Ray currently saying 3-2, which is a decent standing, especially with last split. They didn't necessarily have the strongest performances in the earlier stages. Up against Lucent, who are down at the bottom 1-5 alongside London United. Let's start with Lucent because they're the team that we've got. We know we've seen them consistently. There was some promise going into the season with these guys. And again, it hasn't really happened.
Yeah, no, I think in particular, right, when you take into context how people are looking at the Lucent lineup, there was obviously the known UK player names inside of DBL for you little pants, but then there was kind of some question marks around in particular Johnny Kurosh, who, you know, well, Kurosh definitely a little more known, but Johnny in particular
Mm.
as a effectively a rookie to competitive play. People didn't really know where his ceiling was, where his floor was even. There was no real way to gauge him. He came in, played 2 games or 3 games rather, I believe, looked okay in that first Super Week, and then obviously jetted off away from Lucent. So we've had the situation where right donors come in, jungled for them 2 games, not particularly looked the most convincing naturally as a manager, and now they have Dan Domin, who himself also brings a bit of unique play style. So I think to me, looking at it from the outside in, Lucent probably do need a bit of a leadership role to still be
Mm.
instilled. I imagine when you're shifting junglers in particular, and I assume because typically in competitive setups, junglers are the early game voice. That's normally how a lot of teams do set up their competitive infrastructure. It will be the jungler. Sometimes the mid laner is calling the early game shots and then the plays, and then it's typically the solo laners or the support that continues on that trend after 20-minute mark. When you're cycling in junglers, sometimes that infrastructure can take a little bit of time to mend, adjust to how they potentially want to play the game now.
Mm.
But of course, again, they are kind of this team that have their own weird picks, and they do on occasion make them look really good. But we still need to see more of that come to fruition. We saw it once. I actually can't recall who they were against. I actually think it was London United, so maybe it's not the best gauge, right? Where they had this super aggressive team comp, but they executed fairly well on it. Uh, but yeah, we'll see. Again, expectations not crazy high, but for rate, I think this is a game where you want to just kind of walk over it regardless of what's going on with your own roster.
Absolutely. This is going to be an excellent time for Rate to say, look, we've got these changes coming through, but they haven't come to fruition yet. Of course, they've got a new marksman that they're looking to bed in on. The team Hoys, I believe, is going to be coming on through, but not for this game because Sin will be stepping in and maintaining his position in the roster, which Ray have had a pretty decent opening. It's been mixed, but has been fine. They're setting it 3-2 right now. Asterisk. There's that Monster Rugby game that I haven't got 100% information on, but that is going to be potentially replayed, potentially goes to them. It's, UK League of Legends, don't worry about it. But for them, I've been excited by a couple of players, right? It's not been, I wasn't super hyped coming into this one, but Errol, especially in the mid lane, is someone who we've seen around a little bit here and there, who's definitely looked much more at home on this roster, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I think in particular, you're looking towards Errol Nulto as well. Are probably the
Mm.
players that kind of spring to mind. The two solo laners of rate have definitely been very, very impressive in my mind. Um, I think when you look towards the bottom side, maybe, yes, you can kind of potentially ask for a little bit more. But obviously, we're seeing the AD carry be swapped in and out, in and out. At the moment, Hoist came in, only got, I think, 2 games in, maybe even one. And now they're swapping back in Sin for whatever the reasons are. That's how the substitutions are working out for now. So
Oh,
yes.
I'm getting word that Sid is subbing in for Velocity.
Oh,
For those of you keeping score, Velocity is the
right.
support.
Interesting. So Hoyes is still playing.
Hoyes
S-
is in. So the
so, ooh,
okay, imagine
ooh,
you get subbed out of your team, you get benched, and you're open to moves to new teams. We've seen that on social media, and then the team is like, by the way, you're laning with your replacement.
it's tough.
It's
That's
hard out.
tough.
It's I said it in the video of the broadcast. It's hard
It's
out here,
it's
people.
tough. It's tough. But look, I think no matter how you look at it, you now have an offer of support in the bottom side into a
Mm,
matchup where honestly I feel like Fury and Lil Pants in lane have had their fair few share of pretty strong looking performances. And not only that, they're one of the few bot lanes, I believe, off the top of my head, that have pulled out Callista in the bottom lane too, and actually played and gone for a very hard, aggressive, 2v2 bottom lane style,
mm,
away from kind of like the Nami Lucians, which we typically see lent towards that aggressive style. So I think that could even maybe be an angle for them to try and attack. I expect with that information at hand, that Lucent will look to play a very bot centric game, try and abuse the fact
mm.
that there's an off-roll player in the bottom side, and just look to go down that avenue. I think when they're looking at the solo laners, yeah, Nulto and Errol, I think pound for pound are probably stronger than DBL and Kurosh, but I expect DBL and Kurosh to be the kind of players that can hold their own and stand their own ground so that they can potentially play towards the bottom side and enable Lil Pants and Fury. I think a lot of it's also going to come down to draft. What side of the map are they on? Are they blue? Are they red? Those things can very heavily dictate how you're actually allowed to draft. So it's more about waiting for this information to come to light for us.
And this is where I want to kind of go on the other side of the foot. That as someone who's coached before, back in the day, many moons ago at this stage,
Mhm.
if you, as we do move into the draft, if you are in the position where you've got Hoys and Sin in the bot lane, do you try and draft away from them and just give them safety? Do you have to draft something very simple? Are we looking at something
Well,
like the Senna potentially?
speaking from first-hand experience, having played against the field support, and you know what, funnily enough, I was talking about this game a few nights ago, but this was 2020 summer against the Mize, where they had their substitute mid laner had to sub in at the support role. You just go down there and you abuse the fact that typically support players have to be good to play their role, especially in lane. If you have somebody off role, they're not going to know all of the ins and outs of, the micro, when they have to actually open out and move away from the bottom side of the map. So I expect Lucent will play towards that. Whether or not Rate, like you were asking, are going to now look to draft away from the bottom side, we'll have to see. Being on red side, that can definitely be a possibility. It's very easy to get counter picks for your solo laners on the red side. But it's about how they actually facilitate those drafts to come in, as we do get picks and bans. Gangplank, Lilia, Senna, banned away by Lucent, and Fuyu's Yumi, not Yumi, Twitch, and Zeri, which both pair very well with Yumi, taken off the top cards.
Yeah, immediately, right? Just like, we get it. We're not going to give you an easy time down this bot lane. Poppy also going to be taken off the table, so none of that for DBL. Of course, Damdom might have also played the jungle.
Yeah, it's a two-way flex special for Lucent now that they have Dandom. Of course, immediately picked that one up on his game on Tuesday and shoved it into the jungle, but we'll see, because of course DBL, Death by Lollipops, is what the name stood for back in the day, but Wukong being hovered, still one of our strongest junglers on the patch for now, and will be taken up into the hands of Lucent. So you'd probably expect from Ray at this point, you can, if you're trying to hide pick, you go the Viego plus something that you're looking to prioritize, or you get 2 picks of priority for yourself, and you know you're probably going to look to take Viego on R3.
It depends if they want to go for something really strong in the bot side. I'm trying to think if there's anything. There's the Lucian Nami, if they want to go in that direction, but it looks like they're just going to be opening up with the Gwen. So good to see that they've remembered it exists. And there's the Yumi, as you mentioned, might be picked up.
Yeah, so Gwen did get hit on 12-11, so she is a little bit weaker. Still very much a strong champion overall. Her scaling did get hit a touch, as did her early game, but with a Yumi on her back, she's not really going to feel that too much. Once you sort of hit that 2 iron mark, you start to get into those small team fights or just bigger skirmishes in general. But for now, let's see how Lucent want to react, because they know what the support matchup is, and they definitely know that Gwen is likely going to be in Nultu's hands, though we've already seen Julbu pilot it in the jungle, so we can't really make any assumptions until we see the 4-5 here, as Lucent, they're going to pick up the Ezreal to try and split apart the Ezreal Yumi. Ezreal, one of the few good pairings still left up and available with that Yumi, so now it's going to be very interesting to see what exactly Rate will pair the support with, as I was expecting maybe that Lucent would want to take, some hard, aggressive bottom lane into that Yumi, or into the bottom side with the information that Sin is playing at the support role. But instead, they're going to go something a little more passive, a little more scaly, right? Inside that Ezreal Rakan, very slippery, very hard to dive, but not they'll be getting dove by a Yumi in most cases anyway. And the Rate side now have the opportunity to just take up the AD carry of choice. It's a fairly weak lane, right? Ezreal and Rakan. It's not something that you necessarily have to panic about, and it seems like Hoyes has a relatively decent idea of what he wants to pick up, either a lane bully or outright scaling champion. And just will be the Aphelios, which did get a love tap buff on 12-11. It's not the biggest in the world, but definitely going to help him out in that scaling department, keep him up to scratch, considering how tanky everybody got on 12-10.
Absolutely. It's an interesting pickup for sure, because we say Rakan and Ezreal is a very passive lane, but if you go down a little bit early, they can go in aggressively at level 2, level 3, try and get some damage down onto you. So if Errol gets caught out on that one, could be about, well, not Errol, Hoyes gets caught out on that one. If Errol's playing Aphelios, there's many more questions and issues within this Rate roster that we haven't discussed. But we are into our second round of bans. Errol will also not be playing the LeBlanc, as that one's going to be banned away alongside the Ahri, and Yone is also going to be moved away from him. So mid lane is certainly the focus this time around.
Yeah, definitely so. It seems like Lucent are potentially expecting this Gwen to go into the jungle, right? When you ban away something like Yone, Errol, a little more known for the likes of the Cassiopeia, for example, and sort of typically towards the control mages. Not saying he can't play, but also you have to remember Nulto could also get his hands on that one too. So it works both ways, whilst it does definitely hit the mid lane pool a little bit harder. We'll see what Lucent want to do as they confirm a Camille ban. So it says to me that maybe they're looking to pick up the likes of the Gnar or potentially something a little more team fight orientated that could maybe get outscaled on the side lane by the Camille. As a rate, they banned away 2 mid laners, so my expectation is now that they'll pick up a mid laner for Errol. Though we'll have to wait and see, or maybe we won't, as actually it's just going to be Nulto's Fiora. So the Gwen is kind of effectively confirmed to likely be in Julbu's hands. We saw it all the way back in week 1. Didn't have the best performance in the world then, but hopefully we'll have a much better performance this time around. Fiora blind for Nulto, it's not the first time he's done it, and Fiora in general definitely had a lot of talks about this champion in the top side, definitely on the stronger end of things since the durability patch is getting nerfed, I think, on 12.12, which is the live patch right now. But Volibear will be locked in, and that could mean that we're going to be seeing Wukong topside as opposed to inside of the jungle. Both those picks technically interchangeable with one another in both those roles, but if you're looking at Volibear into Fiora, I would imagine, yeah, you probably don't want to do that. Wukong likely has a much easier time in terms of finding those positive trading patterns using the Warrior Trickster and such. So Lucent now thinking about their mid lane pick, and it's just going to be the not the Volibear, the Victor. Both start with V. So a little more team fight prowess after that sort of item and a half mark, a little more wave clear and safety in the mid lane, as he knows that Errol has quite a few picks that could potentially look to punish something that can be a little bit immobile in the early game. But when he's looking at Gwen jungle, he should be okay, simply because there's not really too much setup coming from the Gwen. It's more likely to come from the mid lane. But instead, Errol is just going to settle for his tried and tested and very, very comfortable Cassiopeia, as he does so often. And honestly, a fair amount of value here, as much of the Lucent lineup is going to be trying to dive forward, right? The Volibear, the Wukong, they're all going to be looking to enable their Victor and Ezreal to kind of come online and get their damage out. Cassiopeia loves dealing with anti-dive, and so does the Yuumi, actually. We saw that on the Tuesday as well. It was just so difficult to dive. I believe it was into the natives composition where they had Yuumi, Udyr, and a bunch of other very highly mobile champions. So Yuumi can do a very good job at disengaging. So I think realistically, right, probably looking at something like akin to a 1-3-1 here. I think with the Fury, even the Cassiopeia can hold their own on the side lane. It's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, for Lucent to match those side lanes. So looking to really try and push the envelope with some very serious and quick snap engages and team fights.
I'm excited to see how this one pans out, just because you've got the autofill onto Yuumi, which is an interesting decision. I guess it's slightly easier when you're not needing to know, because you mentioned, of course, supports, they need to be know when to roam. The answer on Yuumi is
not
no.
often. I mean, you do. You do. It's a little more nuanced. I know, obviously, there's a bit of a meme about Yuumi being a low skill champion. She's actually got one of the highest skill caps in the game. You'd be very surprised. Yes, the floor is very low, and that is definitely, you know, an undisputable fact, and definitely a positive in this situation. Yes. We'll see what Sin decides to do. I think, you know, being able to piggyback on Julbu and try and enable Gwen to find a little more success and enabling her, you know, giving her the Yuumi armor on her back so that she has an easier time getting on top of targets is definitely going to benefit Rate as a whole, as long as Hoyes can, you know, farm up in the bottom side, which when he's looking towards an Ezreal Rakan, very hard to get Dove 2v1 by that combination. You really do have to misstep or have a huge wave stacked up on you for that to actually come about, and you get 100-0 without trading back a kill. Very difficult. The all-in potential between those two champions isn't traditionally been the highest.
Yeah, absolutely not. And just keeping our eyes, which composition do you prefer? Because I know you've spoken relatively positively about both. I want to just know if there's a favor here.
I mean, I think if we're talking about the trends we've seen on 12, you know, League of Legends post 12-10, scaling compositions tend to win out, and I think 1-to-1, the Rate composition does outscale, and I think in functionality as well, it just kind of should as well. When you're talking about how the comps are going to interact with one another on top of objectives, it's on Lucent, in my mind, to find engages, right? It's on them. You know, they're the ones with the agency. It's not so much Rate with the agency to go into these positions where they're looking for the fights every single time. Yes, it can be the case, but I think it's Lucent with those agency tools, so they're going to have to do it. And when you're running into a Petrifying Gaze, last chapter, it's just very difficult to murder those Raid members when they've got so much CC to back them up. And Hoy's, in mind, actually has gone for the Ghost for a little bit of additional movement speed to try and kite in and around and actually see 3 Ghosts on the side of Raid. So snowball potential as well in team fights.
Mm.
Definitely a possibility with all that additional movement speed. And they will catch Lucent, likely going for this invade here. Crush on the top side will get forced out on a ward, will get dropped onto the blue buff too. So information is being traded on both sides, but we're here on Summer's Rift for game number 1 of the day.
Yep, we got Lucent on the blue side. We got Raid on the red side. Lucent looking to pick up their second win of the split and get themselves away from the bottom of the table. Raid doing okay, middle of the pack right now. Game in hand, which is something that we don't get to say too often in League of Legends. Going to be looking to stamp down their playoff credentials. I know we can't use the P word this early in the season necessarily, but Raid, as an organization, want to prove that they've got something going on this split, because of course they want to be looking towards those promotions, and getting towards Division 1 is obviously an option for this season if teams perform well enough. But they'll have to do so with, of course, Sin at support, who is traditionally a marksman player, as the bot lane will be a bit of a scrap. Neopant's going to go for the knock up. Do you expect to see Lucent maybe playing around this one, even though it's not the most aggressive? We've seen Volleyball on the top side.
Yeah, I mean, Dandom will be pathing down towards the bottom side for his first clear, so maybe there's a chance that they'll try and find some kind of setup and try and abuse the fact that, yes, Sin on the Yumi isn't going to be, the traditional marksman as eats a whole bunch of damage, but of course we'll be able to heal some of that back up eventually once he gets access to the zoomies. But yeah, we'll see what the game plan actually is for Lucent. That Dandom starting on the top side definitely does potentially spell that he will be getting involved in some bottom side action. But Jorbu also doing a great job. He's starting on the top side to path down towards his bottom side, likely to try and cover, and also gets a really nice trade here on the top side of the map. And that's one of those things where, again, whilst he does only see the Wukong at the time when he locks in this Fiora, just had a rough idea that it's probably going to be a good matchup into most of the things that DBL can put on the table. And as the Wukong gets flexed to the top side, yes, you get a whole bunch of armor from your passive. That's kind of what makes him a bit of sort of an oppressive in some matchups. Top laner, as you can see, Fiora right here, a lot of
Ooh.
magic damage from the riposte, and all of the damage comes from the true damage portion of her passive. So kind of just ignores a whole bunch of those resists. And Wukong's passive isn't quite as, useful, I suppose, in terms of finding positive trades.
Absolutely not. And for Wukong, who's a champion that is so prolific and so strong on the current patch, finding a good answer into it. Remember, this was the priority pick for Lucent. This was their B1 champion that they really wanted to see. Being kept down a little bit in the early stages is always going to be good news, and actually going to be looking for an early recall from Nolta to pick up maybe that first item to give himself even more an advantage, having already forced out the teleport from the Wukong. Things are already looking good for the solo laners. And we said that potentially these rate solo laners might be a little bit stronger than their counterparts on Lucent, or have shown to be a little bit stronger this split at least. I think it's the more diplomatic way of saying it. So if they can win in the 1v1, it does open up things a little bit more for Jobu to maybe babysit bot lane a little bit more. But we could be getting a gank coming through, Little Pants and Dandon coming on through. The flash comes through, but it don't land onto anyone as Jobu needs to be careful. Goes low himself as he's coming for the response, but he might just go down. A lot of damage, but it's first blood going over to Dandon as
Oh,
the Cassiopeia unable to chase with the Ghost.
yeah, everyone's out
Although,
of mana. That's the crucial thing. Can't find any more damage onto those members, and just one of those irritating things where Cassiopeia can be such a strong skirmisher in the early game, but again, her mana pool just runs out so quickly until that tier is actually stacked up. And Lucent, whilst trying to find Cassiopeia, actually just end up finding Julbu just because he's trying to cover the counter gank. Really great stuff to switch targets there. Julbu doesn't really have much of a means of escape.
and that's where we can see the exchanges happening on the top side. We got to see a full one of those. DBL going in, but is unable to find too much. And then Fiora can just, even with the ability for Wukong to go invisible, dive away with the decoy, still takes a massive beating when it comes to the exchanges. And Noto just knows this, is controlling the lane exceptionally well. Meanwhile, on the bot side, haven't seen any early plays down there. Farm, though, not looking so good for Hoys.
Yeah, down 10 CS. Has a bit of a wave coming into him, but still going to be down several nonetheless. Not having the best early time, but I mean, at the end of the day, you do have Yumi is going to, eventually kind of buffer you up in the scaling department. And also, you've gone for the call. So, you know what you're playing for if you're Hoys. You're not playing for lane. As long as you can obviously stay relevant in CS, that's the important thing. And for now, definitely is. Only down 4 by the time he kills those couple of creeps.
Dandom is around the neighborhood, but seeing his bot lane recalling is just going to go down towards his Krugs, and it will be an Infernal Dragon first one of the game, so something that both teams will likely be interested in at least thinking about, if not contesting. And with the rate bot lane having the higher health bars at the moment and looking to have a little bit of priority, could be something to consider with Jorbu being down there, but his health bar's a little bit too low to consider it immediately.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be taking down the Grump though. Didn't smite it, but it looks like he's just going to go for the reset. So not going to be looking for a gank. Did of course have Hoy's Gravitum for potential setup, but with Dandom in the area, it just doesn't really make too much sense. Actually, complete river control right now. So I wonder if
Mm.
this will enable either a player or a gank. It seems like the latter. Hoy's, if he steps too far forward, Little Pants doesn't have flash. Hoy's does have both summoners. I'm not sure whether or not they'll really be able to burn anything though. As the wave just slowly starts to shove back in. Fu make sure of that as Hoy's
Goes in
actually
aggressively, but has a pretty low health bar. But Dandon, of course, in the neighborhood is going to run towards him for you able to jump away. Hoyes needs to be careful. He's not caught by the Predator. The bear looking for the stun will be able to land it as some damage comes on through. But if Felix is
red
looking to
white.
return it, is a little bit too healthy, has a little bit too much damage, and Volibear's going to be forced to back away as well. Yubi doing lots of work there as Rate survived the gank.
Yeah, Ghost as well. Yumi on top of that, giving even more movement speed. And Hoyes just flicks over to the correct guns at the right time. The red and white come out, and that's kind of the back away signal. Turn around. Had the flamethrower and the graviton for quite some time, but great gun management. Whether or not you can call it fortunate is a different argument, but managed to swap over to those much better at skirmishing guns than what he had originally, and just forces away Lucent in a 2v3. Really great stuff, and gets Fuyu's heal and flash for that exchange. So I'm going to feel okay about that. Julbu, in the meanwhile, did manage to sneak away a Grump. So a small win for him in the jungle matchup. And just going to take away some honey plants. And there's no Herald for another couple seconds. So we'll be able to take that one up just now. So expect to see him go and return to farming. But Sin has rotated up towards the top side. So maybe there will be something in the offing in the next couple of minutes.
And with how top lanes looked pretty decent, but it's kind of evened out with no kills being secured by Nolto, it's just a little bit of farm in his pocket with TPL trying to get the pressure down. We have got that spawn up, and it looks like Nandom is looking to exchange this one. Goes down towards the dragon that has started that one up, and with control, with Julbu being up in that mid lane alongside Cassiopeia and the Yume, it could just be a 1-for-1 as they move up towards the Rift Herald.
Yeah, seems like it is likely going to be the case. A 1-for-1 in these neutral objective trades. And we'll be Lucent there a little bit ahead of the tempo on this one as they're actually looking to dive Hoyes entirely alone.
Ultima, that's going to be the kill going over to Dandom.
Yeah, very easy. No summoner spells. Ultimate gets blown as well just to turn off the tower, just to ensure that is taken away now. Lucent also pushing this into the jungle camp. And I mean, if we take a look over at Jorbu, he's still on the Herald. It's still not dead yet. We'll just go down now as he picks up the eye. But that's what I mean. It's so slow in comparison to Lucent's play that Lucent pick up the dragon, they get a dive on the tower on the bottom side, they make Hoyes miss a bunch of CS, and they take away some of Jorbu's jungle. That's just a massive win all in all for Lucent, and they even get for you a solo play on the bottom side.
Yeah, so play. A second one was taken as well, just the beginning of the play. So massive swing in tempo going the way of Lucent off the back of that play. Of course, the Rift Herald might be able to be used effectively to neutralize that, depending on where Jobu decides to place it, what he decides to do. Is this an Aphelios angle? Do you want to give the gold down to your bot lane, or do you want to try and give it to Fiora to kickstart something? We like breaking down mid lane towers against Victors.
Yeah, I mean, loads of there isn't really a bad option here. It's just more about the game plan, right? Or I think this could turn into a bit of an opportunistic Herald take.
Mm.
It's just simply because, like, realistically, like we just said, there's three good options. You give it to Fiora, you set her up for the side lane. You give it to Errol, not only you hitting on the mid lane where there's a Victor and, taking down the mid lane tier one when there's such a heavy wave clear mage in the mid lane can definitely yield you very great results in the mid game in terms of opening up the map and taking away that safety net on the bottom side. I mean, it's Aphelios. We've seen it time and time again ever since that champion's been out. It just does things when it's ahead in gold. So accelerating Hoyes towards that 2 iron mark, 3 iron mark is always going to be a benefit to rate.
So keep your eyes peeled on the Gwen just to see which neighborhood she finds herself in and what kind of plays are going to be made. Because, of course, if it's opportunistic, it's not going to be a concerted, let's go here and do this play. It's going to be a I'm just going to continue playing and see what goes on. But Fu's still hanging around bot lane on his lonesome in lane. Little Pants is, of course, around, as is Victor and Volibear. And, of course, the ultimate from Volibear can turn off tower, so they might be looking to set up a dive in the bot lane as Hoyes steps forward. But now you can see
Oh,
members coming in from behind. The tower's going to be turned off, and I don't think there's any way out for the Aphelios. Yubi might also go down as Cautious there with some damage. The Yubi goes and falls, and it's going to be Lucent taking down 2.
yeah, and this is just Lucent abusing the bottom side now. We were expecting it in the very earliest of the game, right? Sort of before that first dragon, just as the first dragon comes up, that kind of time period before Herald maybe is the better time integer to measure. But now we're starting to see those constant collapses towards the bottom side. Jobu will at the very least answer in the mid lane. Seems like Herald took a reset. Actually, no, went towards the bottom side to cover. Gets 2 plates. Actually, could just get the
Ooh.
whole tower for this play by himself. Not going to feel too bad about this one at all. 3 plates. Entire tower will go down to the Herald itself. That's a lot of gold for Juba to pick up, but now he could be in trouble.
Might be in a little bit of trouble. Hoyes is there with the Graviton, makes set up onto 1, but it's not going to stop Damnon, who steps forward once
Oh
again. But now
god.
there's still going through the Lost Chapter coming down as there's a shutdown going on to Jorbu. This is disastrous for
Oh
Lucent
my
as they
god.
lose a member on the play as well as the whole tower.
I mean, forget the fact that Lucent lost the whole tower and the play. How much gold does Jubru have? Because he's picked up a full tier 1 tower with 5 plates on it and got a 450 shutdown. The answer is 2.2k. And that's an absurd amount of gold to already have after just having based for your Nash's Tooth. Jubru's going to hit that second item so quickly. I wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up skipping boots just simply because he has 2.2k in his back pocket already.
Or he could, of course, look to grab those full boots and components for the second item, depending on where the value is going to be.
I mean, so
I'm just keeping my eyes there.
yeah, I mean, so this is the thing, right? IM completions in in League of Legends are some of the most important power spikes, just period. In this case,
Mm.
yeah, it does seem like he will go for the boots. Obviously, you can't really go wrong with having boots ever, but when you have that much gold, right, you have the ability to get what the leeching layer and I think the blasting wand at the same time, or you
Let's be a
could
little
get
careful.
picked off.
Has aggressively extended. We've seen this from Fuyubu Gamer. It's been pretty safe to dive forward. Has Little Pants in support, but
Yeah,
doesn't look like
gonna
a play's
back
going to
away.
happen.
Yeah, not anymore. Not when Rakan shows up. And Errol will just go and farm that wave most likely. But yeah, dual boot does go for the boots. Can't really blame him either. And like we said, movement speed, really, really important in League of Legends in general. Even if you've got all that extra mobility. And not only that, it's the lucidity boots. Gwen does definitely need some of that early haste to get those spells out a little more frequently. But Errol, you're on the bottom side.
Oh.
You've seen what's been happening all game to Hoisin Sin. He's dead.
Although Little Pants will fall to the tower, so it's going to be a 1-for-1 exchange, which doesn't make you feel super good in
Oh
the
no.
top side. Meanwhile, Naruto is going to pop the ultimate, has the healing going down, but DBL's trying to return it around. I don't think Naruto is particularly feeling the dive without a minion wave at least, but
I think
Jorbu's here
Julbu
saying,
is.
we can make this work. The Yubi, of course, is also on top, and DBL diving on through,
Oh.
trying to escape. He's actually going
Oh.
to dance around the Gwen,
Oh
who's trying to get away
god.
from the tower, survives, but that was very, very clean from DBL.
Yeah, very fancy feet from DBL. Also, you have to maybe criticize Jobu a little bit. Bit of an easy setup, but he misses the snip as DBL dashes back on top of him. DBL just walks behind it, so gets a bit of a free pass there. But plate still going down. Noto should be able to pick up this tower just before the plates fall, though he's out of mana. It's going to be a bit of a close call with 5 seconds left, but I think he should just about be able to do it. 1 second left to spare. Now, across the map, let's take stock of what just happened, right? Because
Okay.
Lucent, they pick up their second dragon, but Lucent have been making dive plays towards the bottom side, but it's cost them their mid lane tier 1 and the top tier 1 on the top side of the map, obviously. Nolto picked up a whole bunch of additional plates. Julbu was the big benefactor of the bottom side play where he cross-mapped in mid lane. So Nolto has Divine Sundra, Nash's Tooth already completed for Julbu, and he's already on the way to picking up a Riftmaker, super accelerated in the game already. When you look towards the other side, yes, Mythics are coming in, but Kurosh, Leandri's definitely a decent spike, but you really want to see that second item come in before Victor starts to, blow up the backline. Ezreal still needs a couple hundred more gold until he hits that Muramana spike. And DBL, God knows how far away he is from his Mythic at this point. So for now, honestly, rate probably okay with the game state when you consider where the gold lies. It's just about waiting for Hoist to come online. But to be honest with you, when he's got a Yumi, And he's got these super fed solo laners. I don't think it necessarily matters, albeit Errol could be picked on here in the 3v1.
Yeah, it's just going to go down. Really nice petrifying
Ah,
gaze onto two, but it's a bit wasted. He's going to fall regardless. Now Jobu needs to run in full retreat as they're trying to get on top of him. Damlon gets a very nice stun as DBL teleported into neighbor. A lot of damage going down onto Volleybear, but I think Jobu is still going to fall, trying to get on the tower. Will be able to find it, but doesn't manage to survive too much longer as DBL secures the kill. Hoyes is coming on down with Yumi on his back, but won't be able to find anything. It's another couple of picks down in the bot lane. Very happy hunting ground for Lucent.
yeah, Lucent have been making the bottom side of the map their hunting ground. I really like that term there, Will. And frankly, Rate just not really respecting, the informational the vision that they have at hand, or the fact that Lucent have just been repeating this play for the last 6-7 minutes. And what I would really like to see is a bit of a shift up in lane assignments in particular. I would love to see Yumi, get off of Hoist for now. Sit on Jobu. He is your strongest member in this game. Allow Hoist to get some solo XP. I think that's also the crucial thing. Enable Julbu to actually be even stronger than he already is so that you can win out on these skirmishes. Because imagine if Sin was on top of Julbu when that bottom side skirmish came to fruition. That's a lost or a last chapter on top of all that damage that Gwen just put out. I'm pretty certain that they would have almost certainly turned around that team fight. But for now, just continue to stay attached to Hoys. We'll see exactly what goes on there. But lane assignments definitely need to change up a little bit as well. A little more respect towards those side lane plays.
I mean, this game is very, very fascinating because on the surface, it looks really great for Lucent, right? They're getting the kills. They've got the first two dragons. They're controlling the map quite well. Have got themselves a tower. Yes, they've lost out on two, but have still shown some owners when they're coming in to push. But for me, it just feels like Raider happy with the state of affairs right now. They've got themselves parity in terms of gold. They've got very strong scaling composition going on through. And yes, Raider about to hit the Aphelios has just finished up the Cull. They've got this really overextended Gwen coming through as well. It just feels like Raider in a very, very happy spot.
Yeah, Ray are okay for now when you talk about the scaling aspect of things, for sure. But Lucent are doing a really, really good job of accelerating, the tempo of the game on their end. However, Ray have fairly consistently been doing a great job at cross mapping, and we'll pick up the tier 1 tower down here. Kurosh will very slowly take down this tier 1 as well. But Herald is available on the top side of the map, so if they want to try and pick up this tier 2, they definitely can. And take a look where Little Pants is, because he's also shadowing this rotation from Dandom and Kurosh. It looks like they are just going to go drop down this Herald. You can see on the mini map as well for you is moving up towards the top side, so they want this tier 2. 2 towers for 1, going to be okay for Lucent. At the very least, they will be on the upswing in gold, and now they can go back, reset. This dragon spawns in just over a minute's time. Seems like that tower's actually not going to go down, so that's going to feel bad. Little
Ooh.
Pants going to get chunked out, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Tower doesn't go down, but realistically, someone can sneeze on that, and it will. Lucent have the reset timers for now to go back towards that dragon, but because Ray are already on the map, have already spent their gold, they'll be the ones that should have first move for now to try and set up some vision in the river.
It looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. Just try to get some clearance down on the top side of that river entrance. Put a wall down mid as well, just to control things a little bit. And for rate, slowing down any potential Dragon Soul is going to be good for them because this game is very, very close on paper right now. And giving that Dragon Soul over to Lucent would be a very sad state of affairs when it comes to rate scaling opportunities. Because yes, the champions do go well late, but team fights will become so much harder with all of the sustain that would provide. They're just going to try and take down the Skull Crab. But in
Oh,
the back line, the
Lil
engage comes through from Lillipants. The layering coming on down from Lucent, looking towards Jordan, but he stands strong. Everyone goes low, but will be able to
This is what I
snake
mean.
away. And now the turnaround is coming through. The manager to get the route down though. Kurosh needs to get some damage through. Looking for it. Will be able to find it. Food dives forward, but
Ooh.
goes down. Can't find the killing blow and rate. It looked like a decent turnaround, but aren't able to find too much. They lose two members and will probably lose the dragon as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, they only lost one, right? Only lost an also. It's Lucent that lost two, but it seems like Koiz is going to be chased down here, separated from the rest of the team. Does have red and white, but unfortunately, Kurosh has a full health bar.
Now it was a prediction call. It
Ah,
wasn't a
yes.
county. It was just this
Yes.
play is going to be a 2 for 2, which of course Jobu still managing to sustain up. He's got Yumi on his back and will be able to control the area. Actually looking towards
God.
Fuyu, who tries to get some damage down, but
Oh,
teleport coming in the side, though. This team fight is going to be Mark II as Naruto looking to try and catch someone out. Kurosh is the victim. He hasn't got the gravity field anymore and needs to be careful, but Naruto takes a whole heap of damage as DBL diving forward, looking towards the Fiora, who looks
Enzo's
to the
dead.
river, but it's Fuyu grabbing himself the kill, and now moving forward, DBL wants to control the river once more, diving forward towards Jobu, but he's going to be able to turn the attention
That's the
back around.
needlework
There's a knife
again.
of damage, but will fall as Sin gets taken out as well. He dived onto the Gwen, tried to escape, but there's just no way, and just like that, Lucent secured themselves the third dragon.
Yeah, they secured themselves the third dragon. Lucent looked a little bit dicey there. That Gwen is so strong. I think had the Riftmaker on the map already. I'm not sure if just purchased. Yes, already had that during that fight. So was so powerful with the Yumi finally on top of the Gwen. You saw when Dandom dived in, just got absolutely minced. There was really not too much that the Volibear could do as soon as he went forward, trying to find some lockdown. And we'll have a replay of the team fight actually to show you exactly what we're talking about. Because I mean, look, finally the Yumi's on top of the Gwen. You see the engage come in. It's a great flank from Little Pants, but Dandom just gets absolutely minced by all the carries, goes a little bit too far forward. No one on Lucent can actually back him up, and you can see how much damage Jorbu is able to put out, but he's also still very, very squishy. Another nice knockup comes out from Little Pants, and also isn't initially able to find the damage onto DBL, but I think it's the Leandries of Errol which does the job, and Hoyes had to make a decision on what way he would choose to escape. Unfortunately, picks the way which gives Lucent vision, and they're able to hop over the wall and eventually chase him down. And I think the frustrating thing for Ray is they're so strong, specifically the Gwen and the Yumi, at being able to take this team fight, but they just have to play a little bit slower so some of that sustain can come in. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case, and Jewel was also able to find a lot of damage returned back onto him. Nolto finds his teleport, but again, you know, kind of a little bit too deep, waiting to find something to riposte, misses the riposte stun, isn't actually in position to turn that one around, but even if he did, I think would have been dead either way, and Julbu goes back in, takes down DBL with all of this extra damage. I mean, look at this burst. It's, yeah. Gwen's fed. Simple as that. And the cat is left to die.
But Lucent find themselves the opportunity to pick themselves up Dragon Point in 3 minutes' time. Looking to take down that tower as well. There's the sneeze from Victor. Managed to secure that one solo as Rate. Looking to defend the mid lane tower from Fuyu. Actually going to try and dive onto him again. He's extended. Does a lot of damage. Actually takes Hoyes down before falling. And now the ultimate coming down from Dundon, looking to get onto Gwen. He has support in the wings from the rest of his team. As a nice play from
God.
Yubi, kicks Little Pants down. Jobu is certainly fed and is looking towards Kurosh. Dandom is trying to get some CC down, but Gwen will be able to skip away. Fiora's tagging in alongside Errol on the Cassiopeia. The damage comes through, and the Wukong is felled as Rate turn it around and look
Baron.
towards Baron.
Yeah, Baron, very, very much a possibility. Errol doesn't have blue buff, but has a full mana bar. Jorbu's going to deal so much damage with True and the percent HP damage as well. This Baron is going to get absolutely melted. It's only 23 minutes into the game. It's just Dandom and Kurosh who are the ones alive to try and stop this, but I don't know if they have enough in the tank. It's just going to have to be a steal, if anything, but it seems like they're just going to yield it entirely. Baron goes over to Ray, and this is what I was talking about, the scaling aspects of this composition 1-to-1. It's just such a nasty outscale, but not only that, the interactions are just typically going to be negative for Lucent. They're the ones with all the agency, they're the ones with all the engage options, and they have to dive in to this Fed Gwen into the Lost Chapter from the Yumi, I beg your pardon, and not only that, Cassiopeia as well loves having people dive into her just because it just means she's able to get all of her damage out for free.
And that's what we just saw, right? The Rate composition finally looking, well, I say finally looking online, but they've looked online on and off in parts. The Gwen has been online for like 10 minutes at this point because Jolbu's fed. But the rest of the team finally getting to work around what they want to be doing in the latter stages of this matchup. And it looked very, very strong. They found themselves the Baron buff. It's quite an early take. There's still all of the inner towers standing, so Lucent are going to need to defend those. Rate's going to be trying to take those down at a bare minimum. But of course, they're also going to have to contend with this dragon spawning in 80 seconds. Is this Baron going to be enough to just help Rate take the dragon without a contest?
I mean, I think if it isn't, I think the fact that Jorbu's picked up a demonic embrace on top of all the damage he's already been able to put out is just going to help him even more. A little more added survivability of all that HP, percent HP as well, because honestly, there's a fair amount of health being purchased on most of the members here of Lucent. And again, having the Yumi on his back is going to help. And not only that, if there was to make things any worse, Gwen being immune with a Yumi on her back even has a stopwatch for the stasis.
And this Yumi could be hugely important because, as you mentioned, going on to the Gwen, even going on to the Fiora, just making that survivability even harder on these duelist slash. I don't know if you'd call Gwen and Fiora juggernauts, but with a Yubi on them, they certainly are.
Oh, they feel like it. That's for sure. They don't have the mobility of juggernauts, but certainly do have the return damage as they're just going to retreat back towards the dragon. Lucent have control of their own jungle, which is great, but will they be able to use that to find an edge in towards the river? I'm not too sure. And also could get caught out here. Shrelia's was popped, but I mean, again, Riposte is going to make any kind of engage a little bit too difficult. This is what I mean. The turnaround and the disengage options from Rate so strong. And look at where Julbu is with Yuma on his back
Oh,
pop.
petrifying days! The damage coming through. Two are already dead. As Nolto looking towards Dandom, can he take down the bear? One more shot for the ultimate to pop, but it will not find it this time round. Nolto has to dive away as Errol returns to the mid lane. Excellent pickup, 2 for Rate. They'll grab themselves the Dragon Denial as well. Can they look to siege mid?
Yeah, I think they definitely can. The wave clear isn't going to be as powerful because it's Baron buff. And for now, it seems like even Jewel Blue is going to make his way down towards the bottom side and just shoving this wave, create another pocket of pressure that Lucent have to respond to. 3 versus 5 on the map right now. You're going to have to see somebody answer that Gwen in around 10 seconds' time. Maybe Little Pants and Fuyu will come up at an adequate time to actually deal with the split push. But Baron does dissipate, so now maybe Rate will have to back away as Chaos Storm gets dropped. That wave is going to die. It seems like Lucent will live to fight another day and keep some of those towers up.
I'm just looking at what was gained there. Only 1 tower, and of course the Dragon Denial, a couple of kills on the Baron power play as well, but not necessarily super impressive from Ray.
The Baron itself, yeah, I mean, you would have felt maybe they would have got more of it out of it, but I think realistically, stopping that soul from going over, taking down that tier 2 on the bottom side, it feels definitely a little bit bad to not get more, I think, but Lucent did a fair enough job at not getting picked more than they had to, tried to rotate into the river to contest that dragon, got punished for it, but they didn't lose any towers, and I think they can live happy with that.
Absolutely, and of course, it might not feel like the need for a stabilizing Baron, if that makes sense, because they are in such a strong position. As Little Pants might be found out, and I think there's only one person who wins this fight. Ultimate coming through from both champions. Little Pants actually going to be able to dive away, dancing and dipping out of dodge, and now Dandon is looking to try and get on top. But Gwen is immune, and the damage coming through is certainly huge. And the jump away from Dandon using that ultimate, but also diving forward. The last chapter lands onto the volley bear, but Fiora's already dead. Overextending a little bit. The Fiora's not as tanky as the Gwen is, and DBL on the other side of the map is going to be chased away, burning low, but will not go down this time around to Errol, who has flash available, but DBL should be able to march backwards. It's on the wrong side of the map, though, so I don't think he's going to survive for too long. For the tower will fall, but the burn means that Errol secures the kill.
Yeah, no execute to be had, and Rate just not on the same side on the top part of the map there, as going forward, Jorbu has the Yumi.
Yeah, it's going to be a 3v2 of Hoy's turning up as well. Little Panzer Fu in full retreat. Need to be careful, but again, it's not the right side of the map for them to try and escape to as they're dancing around. There's no tower there, though, so they might be able to find a little bit of respite, but Little Pants goes so low. He falls to Jorbu, and now Fuyu trying to dance away, trying to kite, can't find the kill onto Hoy's as he also falls, and the last couple of minutes have just looked a little bit disconnected from Lucent.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Lucent on different pages across the map. You can definitely say the same about Nulto diving a little bit too far forward. Julbu backing up as well. So I think both teams maybe having a little bit of a lapses in judgment, communication, even in terms of like trying to push their lead or trying to push some kind of comeback if you're on the side of Lucent right now. But the gold continues to balloon. Almost 5 minutes into the game, though, it's going to start to mean less and less. And it's going to be more about execution, who finds who where. And for now, I'm looking towards the right side and I'm saying, I mean, your composition outscales 1-to-1, the way that they both interact with one another. You're having more positive interactions because your champions get to play the game they want to, as Lucent don't have the ability to actually even get first move towards the objectives. They have to force into you. So even if, we start to continue to see these fluff ups in the team fights, it just seems like they're almost always going to come out ahead. So whether or not Lucent can try and make a meal out of this Baron takedown.
Right, holding strong in the river. They've started at the Baron. It's around half health at the moment as Lucent might be looking for a steal, but it looks like Ray are going to peel off and try to take the fight. That's a lot of damage going on to Gwen, but the sustain is just there with the Yumi on the back. Hoist needs to be
Got
careful,
knocked
flashing away. Sing goes low. The Yumi's dead, so now the tankiness is just going down. Nolto falls as well. Jobu, the survivability is not going to be there. Kuros will fall, though, as Errol goes for the play. Hoist is trying to dip and dance around this Ezreal will manage to get the kill, but will also fall, and now Job and Errol will be taking
That's a
on Lil
triple.
back to DBL. It's a triple for Errol as he looks to chase forward, slivering towards the Wukong, as DBL will be able to dive over the wall to safety. Errol now looking for Rakan, but is also
Ooh.
able to jump out. But that was an even 3-for-3 trade.
Yeah, the mobility there gets DBL and Little Pants out, but the issue is Julbu, Errol, they're the two damage dealers that can very much and very quickly just burst through this Baron, and they're going to return right back to it. DBL is making his way towards the top side, but this thing is already gone. The only issue is maybe off the back of the Baron, Errol, no, he's still going to have a whole bunch of mana to work with for this team fight. So Baron in the back pocket of Julbu, and the rest of Rate, they do pick it up, and Baron recall will come in. So it looks like they're going to try and rush back down towards the bottom side of the
Hmm.
map, try and ensure that Lucent don't have any say in picking up this soul.
But it looks like they might, because Lucent are going to be the first to the punch there. Naruto being a little bit wary and careful of going up alone, which is good character development from a couple of the team fights that we've seen so far this game, but has now rushed forward, has Yumi on the back this time around though, so the survivability is certainly increased, and Rate are just going to easily take control, grab themselves the scuttle, but Lucent, they want to grab this dragon. They think it's their way back into this game, and it may well be as Dandom goes over the wall. I don't know if he was spotted in the dragon pit though as the fight working off. The Julbo goes to about half health, but will be able to
Oh
survive.
my
Errol takes the
god.
kill, and it's brutal. Late game Cassiopeia, late game Gwen. Dandom looks to retreat, but I don't think he's got anywhere where he can run. Taken down for the triple. It's a 3-2 full house as Rake take the ace.
Yeah, and I mean, Rate just look way more powerful than Lucent could ever dream to be at this point in the game. Baron buff in back pocket, full ace. No one even died. No one came close to dying on Rate's side. This should just be the game right now, as Rate should look to move 4 and 2 up in the standings. Lucent continue to fall down further and further. And honestly, Jorbu, have to commend finding that mid lane play to cross map what was going on the bottom side, get himself so far ahead, finds the redemption game that he was probably looking for on that Gwen from week 1.
And I mean, the Cassiopeia mid as well was just in those team fights. Ugh.
I mean,
Not not
it's
comfy.
why we see Errol banned away so frequently on this Cassiopeia, because he is just really good at it for one. And again, Lucent kind of drafted themselves into this trap, right? They
Mm.
had the Wukong, the Ezreal, the Rakan. It's very divey, yes. And then they just kind of full committed with the addition of the volley bear as well. Yes, the Victor can definitely play at his max ranges, but at the end of the day, if 4 out of 5 of the champions on Lucent's side are diving into Cassiopeia, Yumi, Gwen, and just getting absolutely shredded, Kurosh on this Victor's not going to have enough time to do anything, and that was what we ended up seeing here in this game. Lucent did a great job of punishing the bottom side of the map. It was Yumi at the end of the day. It's a very weak and easy immobile champion to punish. They got their leads, great, but Julbu, the rest of Ray on the top side of the map, did an amazing job at also ensuring that they were the ones getting their own resources whilst Lucent were investing on the bottom side, and eventually it just boiled over too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. A very, very strong performance from Rate. Lucent put up a decent fight, but ultimately will go away with a loss. We're going to jump to a short break. When we come back, it's going to be interview time, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.